Hey guys, my name is Sunil Chauhan and you are watching JavaScript Engineering Tutorial Playlist class number 3. In this class, we are going to understand where in an HTML document can we write our JavaScript code, what are external JavaScript files, how to create one, and then how to reference them back in our HTML document. So let's jump into the code editor and write a bit of basic HTML skeleton. Okay, so here I am in my code editor and I will type HTML and then press tab, and you notice that the basic HTML skeleton gets generated automatically. That's because I'm using a code editor called atom.io. You can download it from this website called atom.io if you don't have code editor installed in your machine. It's open source code editor, so you can basically download it for free and install it into your machine, and it has got loads of feature for editing your code, just like this one wherein I just simply typed HTML and then press the tab button, and it auto generated this basic skeleton of the HTML code. Let's get to our task of understanding where in this HTML code can we write our JavaScript code. So you notice we have got this HTML opening and closing tags, then we have got these head opening and closing tags right here, and inside of this head tag you have got a meta tag as well as the title tag, and then we have got these two opening and closing body tags. So essentially you can have your JavaScript code inside of your head tag in the HTML document as well as inside of your body tag in your HTML document. However, the thing that you have to understand is that you cannot just simply write your JavaScript code inside of this head or body tag. But instead you have to wrap your JavaScript code inside of a special tag which is called the script tag, and you can just type in the script script and then press tab, and this code editor will auto generate the closing tab as well as the type attribute for this script. Specifying the type attribute is an old and outdated convention. You no longer need to specify the type attribute. JavaScript is now the default scripting language in HTML. So we can basically now go without specifying the type attribute. And let me create an image tag here. And for the source attribute of this image tag, let me put an image on my website. Let me put the URL of an image on my website here, and then let's give this image ID, let's give this image tag an ID of, let's say, demo. Now below this image tag, let's create a button, and let's give it an on-click event action. Let's give this button an on-click action. So on click of this button, you would want to fire a JavaScript function. Let's say, for example, let's call it a my function. So on click of this button, we want to fire a JavaScript function called my function. So we will need to define this my function in this script tags here. So function opening and closing curly braces, and then inside of this function let's call our document dot get element by id function, and let's pass it an id of our image tag, which is demo in this case, and let's change its source attribute to something else. So on click of this button we would want to change the source attribute of this image that is already there, and let's set it to another image, source attribute to another image. Basically I will just go in here and select another image on my website, URL of another image on my website, and then paste it in here. So on click of this button, the URL of this image tag will change to this one, and essentially the image which is already present in this image tag will be changed to a different image. So let's preview it in browser. So right now we have this image and we have a button in here. Let's give it a type text. Let's say we will call this button click me. Let's give it a name like CLICK, click me. So we have got a button, and let's take it down a bit. So underneath this image tag we will call a break tag. Let's give another break tag. And now if you look into your browser, refresh it, and you see the button has shifted underneath this logo icon here. So when you click this, we get another image here, but because this image is in white, so it's not showing up on the white background. So for that, let's write a bit of code underneath here, and let's give our body a body tag and id of body, and down here in the script tag let's call document dot get element by id, and let's call this id of the body tag, which is body itself, and let's set its style and background property to black. So notice when I refresh this and then click this button, not only does the image in here change, but also the background of this whole body section here gets changed to black. So as you can see, we can write our JavaScript code inside of the body tag by wrapping the JavaScript code inside of a special tag called script tag. So not only can you write the JavaScript code inside of the body tag, but you can as well have it inside of your head tag. For example, let me just cut and paste this script tag from the body tag and move it inside of our head tag here. So you notice I have moved it to head tag, and if you refresh the browser window here again and then press click, you see it is still working. So we can basically have our JavaScript code inside of head tag or inside of body tag. Ideally we would want to write our JavaScript code inside of the body tag, and we will basically want to place our JavaScript right at the bottom just before the ending body tag here. To save ourselves from the clutter and complexity of both JavaScript and HTML code in the same file, we can just separate the HTML and JavaScript code and have them in separate files. Such files with just the JavaScript code are known as external JavaScript files, and they have the file extension of .js. So for instance, if we want to separate this JavaScript code from this HTML code, we can simply cut it from here and create a new file here and call it, let's call it an external JS. Okay, and let's change its type to JavaScript and save it. And if you go into your directory, web directory, let's save it with the extension of .js. So now you can paste your JavaScript code here, but please make sure that inside of this external JavaScript file, you don't need to have these script tags. You just need to write the JavaScript code, and that's it. For instance, in this case, we will just have this function of my function, and then inside of this HTML file, just above this closing body tag, we will need to include the script tag and call in this external JavaScript file using the source attribute of this script tag, and I'll simply say external -js.js. And if we try to run the JavaScript code again, you will notice that it is still working despite the fact that we have the JavaScript code in the external JavaScript file now. As you can see here, our HTML file is separate and the JavaScript file is separate. So we have essentially separated the JavaScript code from the HTML section here, and we are just calling in the JavaScript code that used to live here with the use of the script tag and giving it the source attribute and passing its source attribute the name of this JavaScript file. So this is how external JavaScript files are imported inside of HTML document. External script files are practical when the same code is used in many different web pages on a site. It saves us from writing the same thing over and over again. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you in understanding where to write JavaScript code inside of HTML document, what are external JavaScript files, and how to import them in our HTML document. That's it for this tutorial. I'll catch you in my next one.